A lot of our team hunts a lot of public land. I think the thrill and the work there is you're chasing the deer down. You go to them. You gotta find them. You gotta hunt them down. It's a little different on smaller private land acreage, and if you guys are watching this video, I'm gonna guess you're probably more in that category, or at least half and half like I am. The goal, in my opinion, on small acreage is I'm trying to bring the deer to me. I'm gonna cover a wide range of topics. You're gonna see what I use because we've got to learn to read the seat tags and things like that. There's a lot of things that I've tried and done over the years. I'm gonna talk about each method, and there's gonna be some methods that I didn't prefer, but maybe you're gonna prefer. So that's why I'm gonna talk about them. And I hope you guys can maybe get a jump start into these fall annual food plots instead of having to try all the different ways like I have before coming to the conclusion. So hopefully this video can help someone else out there get a jump start. I tell you what, one of my favorite things for fall annual food plots is being able to sit in a little log pile blind and that I make on the edge of these food plots, and sit in there with the kiddos and let them kill a deer. It's just, boy, that's just so exciting to me, and I just love it. It warms my heart. You want to do a food plot? What do you want to plant? I'm in the Midwest, to give you guys an idea. So maybe what works well for the Midwest may not work as well for the South or up in Canada type things, but it may work just fine, and you just have to adjust the planting dates accordingly. Annual green mixes, in case you're not familiar, an annual is something that you plant and it grows for 1 year and then it dies. A perennial is one that you plant and it will last several years. Some examples of perennials would be like clover, alfalfa, different grasses are perennials. So we're not going to talk about those too much here, but annuals is really the easiest and most attractive thing. That's what people are planting for your green food plot, late summer, early fall. A lot of guys will start planting in August. I like to wait until September. If you want to see most of the hunting videos that I have on this channel, if you go to my youth hunts or crossbow hunts, any of those will be with the kids, and I love to sit over these food plots with the kids. So when to plant? Just quite simply, I like the plants to be palatable. Let me rephrase that. When the plants are the most palatable, tender, young, and fresh, that's when the deer are going to be the most attracted to them. So once plants hit maturity, I don't know, 8-10 weeks or something like that, they're going to lose some of that palatability, and they're not as tender and young anymore, obviously. So I think the attraction kind of drops off. So another side of this is these plants are going to die, and this is like your oats, your peas, your wheat, your rye grains. Those are going to die when you get the first frost. Die probably isn't the right word. They're going to slow down when you get the first frost. So you want to plant, I try to target planting 10 weeks or so before the first frost, because I want that time to be when the deer are coming to my food plots the most. And I want that to be October and the whole month of October and into November. So if you plant too early, let's say you plant in July or the 1st of August, really like the second week of October, your plants may already start to mature, and you're going to lose some of that palatability and some of that attractiveness. So that's the reason I plant mine a little bit later than probably most people, which is like September for me, because I don't get a frost until November. So these plants are going to be nice and tender throughout the entire month of October, and keep drawing those deer in for me. So we have all these different plants. So what times of the year do the deer eat the different plants? And all these points, bullet points right here, is to help you decide what you want to plant. So these mixes, if you get the right mix, will have seeds that will have plants that the deer like to eat different periods throughout the year. So there's going to be stuff the deer like to eat in October, at the end of October. There's going to be stuff they like to eat in November. There's going to be stuff they like to eat in December and January. So if you buy the right blend, it's going to have a variety or a mix of those. Or if you want to split it up and plant, some of it here, some of it here, some of it here. Or let's say you got a hunting lease and you're only going to be able to hunt it the first week of November, or you're only going to be able to hunt it in October. Well, then you could just plant, the stuff that's going to attract the deer there, really to that little spot while you're there. That'd be fine. And I'm just going to use this for an example. Again, there's lots of different brands out there. Excuse me. So there's the stuff I use called Harvest Salad. And if they quit making this, I'd be a sad day. I'd probably have to go try to make my own version of this. So anyway, this is the one that's got the wheat, the peas, the oats, and the barley, which is like rye grain, I believe. So these 4 type of plants, they're really going to be attractive in that month of October, and I just kind of explained a little bit about that. But now they're still attractive in November, but that's really the core attractive time is in the whole month of October for these guys. So if you want to plant that, you start getting into your brassicas. You're talking radishes, turnips, rape, beets, things like that. These are the guys with the big leafy greens coming out the top. You're talking 2 foot tall. Just you plant one of these food plots and it looks amazing. And you're pumped. You won't believe how easy they grew. You won't believe how great it looks. And then you're going to sit there in October and you're not going to see a deer come and eat it. You're going to look at it and nothing's biting it. You're like, Well, that's because the deer don't eat that until you get the first frost. So where I'm at, let's say November 5th, I get a frost, and now I'd say give it another week, and all of a sudden you're going to walk into that plot one day and it's gone. I've got a guest speaker, or a guest co-host here, my daughter Emily. You can plant these at the same time that you're planting your other food plots. I don't think it matters as much when you plant them. I think you could plant these guys earlier and be fine, or later. The difference is if you plant these brassicas with the bulbs, if you plant them earlier, those bulbs are going to get bigger. So you plant these guys in mid-July, come October, November, you're going to have bulbs like almost the size of a cantaloupe or a softball. You're going to have giant turnips, just huge. If you plant it later, like maybe September or even October, come November, December, you'll probably end up with these little golf ball sized turnips. Now, here's the thing you might not expect. I prefer those little golf ball sized turnips. Let me back up one more time. So you get the frost on these turnips, radishes, beets, whatever. I think beets and radishes and stuff, I think the deer are eating those maybe fairly earlier. So I guess I should really just specify, I'm talking about turnips here, but that's the main thing you'll notice when you plant this kind of stuff. These turnips just do great, and they're easy to grow, and they're so big, so you see them. So turnips. the deer are gonna eat those tops off as soon as you get that first frost. Like I said, you'll come back. Where'd all my tops go? The deer, and if you didn't hit it just right, the deer just eat all those tops down overnight. So then it has to get, once it gets really cold, like December, late December, or January, and on into February, that's when these deer are gonna eat the turnip bulbs. You'll see them come in, and once they get really hungry and they don't have much else to eat, they'll paw at the ground and they'll eat the top of the turnip around the frozen soil that they can get to. The size of the turnips, me personally, I have not had a whole lot of luck with the big turnips. I've planted them for 4 or 5 years now, and the deer will eat them. They'll take samples of them, especially if I plant them with soybeans or something else, like just as a, another option. They'll definitely eat them. I just don't think that, they're going to hit that up as the main food source. Or at least they'll probably find something they like a little better before they come to the turnips. That's been my experience with the big turnips. Now with the small turnips, this is my buddy Kevin Thayer told me this trick. He said, try to plant them real late and see what happens. The deer love the little turnips, he told me. And he was right. I planted them. I waited till a farmer cut his cornfield, and I asked him permission, and he had no problem with it at all. He said, that'll help aerate my field a little bit. He honestly didn't think they were going to grow when I broadcast them out that late, but they sure did. So it was like the first week of October, and I broadcast the turnip seeds right over the top of a freshly cut cornfield, and it rained right afterwards. It was perfect. And yeah, you see this video here where we've got a whole bunch of little turnip tops, and this was taken in November sometime. It wasn't too long before the deer wiped those turnip tops out and those other brassicas, but then it wasn't till late December when I walked through this field and I noticed that there was tracks everywhere. And so we sat down to hunt it, and we had a bunch of deer piling out, and the deer were just coming in herds to eat these little small turnips until they were gone. So that's been my experience on that. It's cool to see the big turnips, but I'd rather have small turnips personally. Someone else may have different experience completely than me. If you ask me on a specific seed brand, feel free. I'm probably going to tell you to plant this real world wildlife stuff just because it's worked for me. But guys, I'm gonna name another brand. It's called Antler King. I know some of my buddies use that with a lot of luck. I'm not gonna bash any name brands. I've used a lot of other name brands off the shelf from the stores and had horrible results. But I will tell you that I have planted some Antler King before, and I've had great results, and I've had buddies that do it with great results. But for me, even with that, nothing I've planted has done as good as this real world wildlife seed. And so what it is they got one called Harvest Salad, and that's got your early October big seeds. Then you've got one called Plot Topper, and that's got your smaller seeds, all your brassicas, turnips, stuff like that. I mix them together. They also sell it pre-mixed. It's called Deadly Dozen. So again, I'm not plugging them. I'm just telling you guys that's what I've used, and it's worked amazing for me. But I encourage you guys to research it for yourself and try some different stuff out. But oats, by the way, yeah, this like a big bag of any brand of oats will work really good too, and they're pretty cheap. So actually, if you're doing your first food plot, and I don't know, I hate to tell you to skimp on seed when you think about all the time and stuff you have invested in it. The pay a little more for a really good seed, and it seems silly to spend all the work and time and effort and then save $20 because you bought a little bit cheaper of seed or something. That's when you spent hours and sweat and blood and tears putting it in. So anyhow, so how to plant. Number 1, soil test. Soil condition. Your plants are only gonna grow as good as your soil. Now, I am going to tell you guys, I don't want to lead you astray here, but I am guilty of not doing soil tests lately because where I put my food plots in, it floods every year, and I think it's getting all those fertilizers and lime and stuff from the other farmers' fields and coming into my bottoms. I think that's what happens when I plant. But I did have a soil test done a few years back, and it come back just like, hey, this is perfect soil. You don't need to do anything. Just plant your seed for what I was going to plant. Like, alrighty then. So I don't do that anymore. I did buy a little home do-it-yourself pH kit tester just because I wanted to test it myself, and the pH came back real good, like 6.7 or something. So I'm not an expert on that, but I will tell you, the better your soil, the better your stuff is. So that means you may have to put lime out, and that means you may want to put a fertilizer out. Now you can just go out when you're and put a 12-12-12 fertilizer, but you're gonna spend more money that way, because you could put out 2 bags of 12-12-12, and well, if your land was fine on nitrogen, but it needed some of the other chemicals that are in there, then you could have bought a fertilizer that only has the one you need and more of it for the same price. So if you see what I'm saying. Anyway, so that's all in the soil. Step number 2 is, so you need to kill the vegetation where you're going to plant. That's what you need to do. And I'm talking like ATV stuff. Tractors, you can probably get away with a little more. Tractor, you could come in and plow, flip the soil over. That'll kill the sod. Then come back and cultivate. Tractor, you can do a little more, and I'm sure you guys know that if you have a tractor. Doing it with 4-wheeler gets a little trickier, but I think I'd do it the same with the tractor anyway though. So what I do, step number 1, is I come in and just spray the area down. Use glyphosate, a 41%, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, so I'm just going to call it Gly from here on out. Go to your farm store, get a 41% Gly mix, and I'll put a link below in the description about how you mix all that in your tank and everything. It's not so scientific and important like everybody makes it out to be when you're not worried about efficiency. So the point is to kill everything off. It doesn't matter if you took 10 minutes longer doing it. So my point is, the bottle says, let's just go with 3 quarts an acre. If you have 1 acre to do, put 3 quarts of that Gly in your tank. Put 10, 15 gallons of water in, something like that. It doesn't matter. Go spray. What matters is that you empty your tank onto that 1 acre. By doing so, you just put 3 quarts of the Gly mix, the Gly, on that 1 acre. The water is more or less a carrier. Also, you can put in there's something called sticker spreader, or you can put some Dawn dish soap, a little bit in there, and that kind of makes it. I think it breaks the surface tension, so it kind of splashes on everything better, and it sticks to the leaves better. Anyhow, so you can I use an ATV with a sprayer. We're going to show a picture here, or video. And I've got a single nozzle, and it sprays about 15 foot wide. I like it because it's simple and I can get in and out from everywhere. It's not as good, from what I hear, as a boom sprayer, because the boom sprayer has nozzles that are closer to the ground and closer to where it's being sprayed, so less, I guess the liquid has less air time, and it doesn't have a chance to turn into a mist or anything, and so it's not wasting any chemical. So once again, for a hobby food plotter guy, I don't really care about that extra couple bucks if I'm not getting every bit, and it works for me. So you want to spray 2 to 4 weeks before you're gonna want to plant, or before you're gonna want to work the soil. I'd plan for 4 weeks. Spray 4 weeks ahead of time. If you want to go check on it 2 weeks later, if it's not looking like it's starting to die, you might want to hit it again. Sometimes by 2 weeks it'll start, wilting and maybe starting to turn yellow, and then 3 weeks it should be turned brown. 4 weeks it should be crispy. So at that point, 4 weeks later, or whenever you're ready to plant, based on the rain. Guys, I'm all over the place, but believe it or not, I'm trying my best to follow an outline here. So how to plant. We did the soil test, we killed the summer vegetation, and now it's 4 weeks later. Now we can come in and work the soil. Now you want to work the soil on the same day that you're going to plant your seed. So the next 2 steps of working the soil and planting your seed are done in the same day, or back to back. So timing wise, you want to set your target date and give yourself plus or minus 2 weeks, and based on the weather, based on the rain. If it's 2 weeks until you were planning on planting and you look at the forecast and there's a bunch of rain coming, you should say, okay, I'm going to plant before all this rain gets here, because that way my seeds will germinate. There's been years where I've waited and I've planted right on the date I wanted to plant, and I didn't get rain for 3 weeks. So guess what? By the time 3 weeks rolled around, half my seeds probably been eaten by birds and turkeys, and the rest of it, it finally germinated, but way later than I wanted. So that's the reason for when you start planting. And so working the soil. So you come back. If you sprayed a bunch of tall grass, the chances are that you can come back and burn it off. It's going to be dry and crispy, and if it was thick enough, my favorite thing to do is burn it off. It's easy. The ash, I think, is good for the soil. And anyway, if you can't burn it off, if you have access to a mower, mow it. That stuff's just going to vaporize, and it'll add like mulch. Then when you till up the soil, be good. Usually I'm back in secluded spots. I'm banking on that it's been 4 weeks and that these plants that I killed are almost like crumbly and dry at this point. And so what I'm doing is I'm just disking straight over the top of the dead grass. So actually working the soil then, what type of equipment works the best? Well, I'll tell you, I have used a pull-behind 36-inch agri-fab tiller with my 4-wheeler. I have used I'm not going to remember the name of it. It's a little bitty disc that goes into your 4-wheeler hitch, and the way you mount it, you're kind of lifting your 4-wheeler up off the ground a little bit, and so it's using the weight of your 4-wheeler. Anyway, I'll put the name of it right here on the screen. I just can't think of it. I actually have an entire video of using this little disc, and it works great. The other kind is an actual, a big pull-behind disc for a 4-wheeler. I think I've got about a 5 or 6 foot one, and that's my favorite tool of all of them to use. The reason, so on the big pull-behind disc, you have to go really slow. If you go too fast, it's going to bounce around. So you weight it down and you go slow, and it works great. For me, it honestly does the best job and leaves a nice, even, level seed bed. So the tiller just takes a long time, and it tends to, when you're doing food plots in the woods especially, and if the soil's dry, the thing wants to bounce around a lot. Without a doubt, it'll give you the best, powdery tilled up soil for sure, and you can go, that deep with it. It's kind of, you've got two motors now. Now you've got a motor on your four-wheeler to worry about, and when you have junk like I do, now you got two things to worry about breaking on you. So for me, that's why I rarely use mine anymore. I do use it for like a smaller gardening, but back in the woods, it bounces off roots and everything. So I don't typically use that anymore, although I used to a lot. The little tiny disc that goes in the four-wheeler hitch, I think that would be my second choice. My favorite part about that disc is it's so portable. Anywhere you can take your four-wheeler, you can take that disc with you, and fast. That's my favorite part. The things I don't like about it is it maxes out your four-wheeler suspension all the way open, and it's a really rough ride. I think it's bad on your four-wheeler. I think it's bad on your frame hitch, and you have to go really fast to get it to work well. And then when you hit the same spot twice, you're displacing soil. Like when you go, it's just like throwing soil out like a wake behind you, and so you hit the same spot several times because you have to go through that little spot. You end up doing figure eights or whatever, and inevitably you'll hit the same spot several times in a row. It's like a little funnel area, and that whole spot and the whole food plot will be lower, and it's going to attract water and things like that. But no, it was a great tool. I liked using it, no problem. Other than that, but I would definitely pick the ATV disc, the big pull behind one. Other tools are like a harrow, and that's what you use after you broadcast. You pull that thing, or just a wooden pallet. You can use that. If you're using a tractor, big, like I've got a cultivator with those cultivating tines. That works pretty good. ATV wise, you're better off with a gear-driven ATV versus the belt-driven ATV, because the gear-driven ATV is meant for pulling. The belt-driven ATV, like I have, gets really hot. So you went in there, you worked the soil, it's ready to broadcast your seeds. The different kind of seed spreaders or seeders. I'll start with my least favorite would be for fall food plots would be like a pull behind your four-wheeler seeder. The problem is you can't see what's going on. You don't know how much seed you're putting out. You either do the whole thing and you don't put anything out, or you put too much. You just can't see what's going on. A lot of these seeds are small. I love the pull behind spreaders for like soybeans. Anyway, the next kind would be like a walk behind, like lawn fertilizer, like that you push like a push mower. That's all right, except your ground is so choppy and rough, at least when I do it from tilling up, that it's just hard to push through physically. So I end up like dragging it behind me, and it's not really enjoyable. My favorite is just one that goes on, I just hold it and I wind it, crank it by hand, and I've got a trigger to adjust the seed, how much seed's coming out, and so I can make instant decisions on more or less seed, and while I'm walking around, just walking a pattern, and it works really well. There's a fourth kind. It's a hand spreader too, except instead of an electric piece, instead of a hand crank, you have an electric motor. So you just hold a trigger down and it spins at a real consistent speed. I've not used one, but I hear they're awesome. So, yeah. Now, one last thing before we go, it's kind of my strategy on the seeding. It's a little different. So, and it's actually why I buy my seeds separately. So, this real world stuff I was talking about, they sell like this oats, peas, wheat, rye grain mix. Those are all bigger seeds. Then they sell the plot topper, which is smaller seeds. Well, the smaller seeds are great for just broadcasting into soybeans or over top of any bare dirt, as soon as they get contact with the soil, they're going to grow. And they actually, you don't want to get these seeds deep at all, the little ones. So what I do is I will go through and I'll broadcast all my bigger seeds out first. Then I will run a harrow or a pallet or something over the top of it once with the 4-wheeler. Then I'll come back over the top with the small seeds and put them out over the top and call it good, because then both the two types of seeds are planted at their optimal depth, and I think it helps a lot. If you're buying a seed mix where it's just really mixed up, like actually the real world sells a deadly dozen, which is these two mixed up together, so you don't have to mix it, then I would still do what I'm doing, just use the same mix. So come in, you work the soil, broadcast over the top, run your harrow, run your disc or whatever lightly over it, trying to get the seed in 1/4 inch or barely in the soil, 1/2 inch, whatever is fine. Then come back with that same seed mix again and go right over the top. Don't overseed too much by doing that, because then it'll stunt the plant's growths. But I definitely do overseed a little bit to help with weed control, so it's kind of always a mixed balance. I've planted thinner before. I'll put a video clip here. It did fine. I'm not saying it didn't, but it just I think I can squeeze in more forage by going maybe 1.5 times the recommended amount when I'm seeding. So I think that's it, guys. I hope that you guys have learned something. Oh, one more thing. If you decide you want to just plant some turnips in an area, so again, disc it, get it as flat as you can, broadcast over the top. Don't run a pallet back over it again. Just leave them. Preferably do it before a rain. Okay, that's gonna be key. And what you can do if you're just broadcasting these tiny seeds, and it's what I do, is get a bag of 12-12-12 fertilizer or whatever fertilizer you want, really for the purpose of a carrier. So I don't even really think I need the fertilizer. I'm just using it as a carrier, and I figure if I'm using something, I don't know, you could probably use like sand or something like that. But if I'm gonna use something, I might as well put some fertilizer out there with it and just give it a jump, I guess. So that's what I do to help me consistently, I guess, broadcast all the small seeds and not accidentally dump a bunch of small seeds in one little area. So yeah, that's it, guys. Like I said, check out some of my other videos below. I know this was a long drawn out one. I just wanted to make sure I kind of covered from A to Z, kind of what I know and what I've learned over the years. Drop me some questions. I'm sure there's stuff that I forgot, and if I don't know the answer, I can get you the answer because I know a guy. Actually, I know 2 guys. So that's it. Appreciate you guys tuning in, and please subscribe if you haven't. That helps me out a lot, and looking forward to this hunting season. Stay tuned, guys.